right. Excellent. Welcome. Thank you all. Thank you for coming this evening to the Traverse Area District Library. I'm Melissa McKenna, and I'm the Department Head for Adult Services up on the second floor here at the Woodmere Library. We are so happy that you're here this evening for the third of our very important community conversations about substance use disorder and the addiction and recovery services that are available locally for those in our community who are suffering from this disease. We hope you've been able to join us for the previous conversations. They were very powerful and informative. Most of them are available recorded on the library's YouTube site, so keep that in mind. Tonight's presenters are going to be focusing on prevention services and programs that target adolescents with education about substance use disorder. I think all of us agree that it's easier to stop addiction before it starts than afterwards, and these organizations are helping to do exactly that. Please remember that there are many services available for those who are looking for help or education right here in Grand Traverse County. We hope that tonight you get the chance to connect with them through talking to the people who are at the resource tables or the presentations, our presenters this evening. We hope you will continue to join us on the third Tuesday of every month through September to learn more about the different aspects of and the services available for those suffering from substance use disorder. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker and organization for this evening. So we have Ken Kaufman. He is the co-chair of the Substance Free Coalition of Northwest Michigan and will be presenting about the prescription opioid prevention through his KnowDangers campaign. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, and thanks, Melissa, for the introduction. As Melissa indicated, I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the Substance Free Coalition in Northwest Michigan and my role as co-chair. Shortly after my son died of an accidental heroin overdose in 2016, I began working on a strategic plan to help get at the root cause of the opioid epidemic. I was fortunate to be part of this coalition, the Substance Free Coalition at that time, and I brought forward the plan to the group, and they helped refine it, massage it in 2017 and 2018. And then in 2019, we went after funding and we received funding to move forward with this initiative. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight and give you an overview, and then hopefully have some good questions at the end or when it's question time. The agenda that I'm going to cover, I'll give you an idea what the key goals of this initiative are and who our target audiences are. And then I'll talk about a general public awareness campaign that we launched in October of 2019 that's going on today. And I'll give you some examples from what we've done with billboards and TV ads and stuff like that. And then get into the results and the future plans that we're planning in the upcoming year, in the years after that. And just so everybody pays attention tonight, I just went out and got these Traverse City spending bucks. So for all the establishments in Traverse City, I got 3 of them, $25 each. So if you pay attention, get the answers right at the quiz, and people on the Grand Traverse Drug Free Coalition are excluded, as well as anybody from the Substance Free Coalition in Northwest Michigan. So our key goals, primary goal of this thing, and you know, Melissa mentioned this in the beginning. Once you're addicted, it's a long battle. It's a long road, and I found that out with my son. And our overall goal is to prevent new cases of addiction from happening. So that is the primary goal, and that continues to be our beacon looking forward. And we also set numerical targets around reducing the number of opioids prescribed in our region by 10% per year, reducing the need for treatment and recovery by 10% per year. And we have a stated goal to eliminate overdose deaths by 2025. And I'll show you some statistics on those at the end. But why prevention? Well, we need to get at the root cause of the epidemic so that we can stop it and have a chance at stopping it before it gets into the recovery and treatment kind of mode, treatment and recovery, lifelong type of mode. because we did not have major issues that we now have with substance use disorder and the booming need for treatment and recovery prior to the mid-1990s, when prescription opioids were mass marketed into our society, along with an intolerance, so to speak, to pain. But here's a chart that's pulled out of the Michigan automated prescription system. It goes back to 2000, and this is through 2017. I highlighted some of the key figures. Opioid deaths in 2017 were over 2,000, and that number still holds true today. There were almost 9.5 million prescriptions written in the state of Michigan in 2017. So we had 9.9 million people in the state at that time. Wow. So that's one prescription for every person in the state. You know, and you got to count babies and children and everything else to get one per person. So it's an alarming rate. And the reason why we went after this is to try and turn the opioid usage clock back to what it was before these things were mass marketed in the mid-90s. Our target groups, we have 4. The first, and what I'm going to spend most of the time tonight talking about, is the general public awareness campaign and what we're doing to kind of get the message out to everyone. We also are targeting students and parents. I've had conversations with Dr. Van Wagoner on how we can get more information into the school system through TCAPs. And we're trying with the other schools in our region, Kalkaska and the other counties that are involved in this thing. The third group that we're going after are those that write prescriptions. And Dr. McGrahm, who is the other co-chair of this initiative, or of the Substance Free Coalition, has taken the lead in that area, and he's visited all the healthcare providers in our region to get the message out, to make sure they're aware of the most recent information about addiction and opioid addiction in general, and to make sure that they have materials in their offices that they can hand out to, you know, people that are coming in. The fourth group is those who write prescriptions, and I've been going around to all the pharmacies in our region a couple times a year and giving them copies of our brochures, and I'll talk a little bit more about those later in the discussion. So the general public awareness campaign, I've got examples from our first 3 phases, and I'll define what those phases are in a few minutes. Our campaign funding, we've received $150,000 roughly a year for the past 3 years, 2019, 20, and 21, from the Northern Michigan Regional Entity liquor tax funds. So that's, and we've got another request in for 2022. So, and this, you know, this $150,000 a year is just a tiny fraction of what is spent on the opioid problem. And I think we're one of the only groups that are really, you know, trying to get the message out on prevention. If you don't start in the first place, you never have the need for treatment and recovery and all the expenses and heartache that goes along with it. We also, last year, we got a $15,000 grant from the United Way of Northwest Michigan. And we've also received a few contributions from individuals that have helped finance our campaign. So the first phase of the campaign was to get the general awareness out there with some personal stories. And here's Nancy Dow on one of the posters and billboards that we had at that time. And this was when we launched in 2019 through about middle of 2020. My wife, Ellen, is in the other poster there, and we had other people doing, and I picked a couple examples to show you there. So we got the word out that there's a problem, and these personal stories really tugged at, you know, people's heartstrings. We then went into the second phase, and we talked about the risks of addiction from prescription opioids. And you can see Ann Grizel up there. She's on one of our billboards during this portion of the campaign, which went from the middle of 2020 until September of last year. And you can see some of the facts that we have. And these facts are important, especially when we get to the end and the quiz. Opioid addiction can happen in just 5 days. 80% of heroin users started with prescription opioids. 1 in 10 opioid users become addicted. I mean, it's powerful stuff. We went into a second phase, phase 2B of this campaign, and we used local professionals. Dr. McGrahm appeared in one of our television spots and some of the stuff that we're doing on social media. as well as some of the locals in recovery to help us get the message out about, how addictive and some of the facts about opioids are kind of an opioids 101. A lot of that information is contained in our brochure as well. The third phase of the campaign, again, you might be called upon to remember this later. So another hint is alternatives to prescription opioids for pain management. And we kind of use this check the box campaign theme for this phase. And tramadol, which is a prescription opioid, versus Tylenol, or opioid versus non-opioid alternative for pain management. Secondly, coding versus counseling. So you use some kind of alternative to the opioid to help you get through whatever you're trying to get through. Take a pill or take a walk. So using physical therapy or exercise instead of having to rely on the opioids. And then medicate or meditate, again, using some alternative versus relying solely on the prescription opioids to help you get through the pain that you may be in. Our informational brochure, I mentioned that a couple times already. A lot of great information in there. Take these right in there when you're going into the doctor, or the dentist, if they're planning to sedate you in any way or give you a prescription opioid after, or, you can share this information with your loved ones because most of the people in this room probably already understand all these facts. Here's a display. I took a picture of it the last time I was in Costco, and that's right at the pharmacy in Costco. They put our brochures in a nice display case, and we'll restack it again this year. Some of the results and the future activities that we've seen. I first want to say that I think our billboards are one of our most powerful means of communication for this general public awareness campaign. We've had people from the Detroit area that come up to Traverse City region or from Chicago that have actually joined our coalition just by seeing some of the messages on our billboards. So it's been a great way to get the word out, and we really appreciate what the volunteers have done to help us get that word out. The other thing that we've done in the second year of the campaign, 2020, we started this, was going after social media, placing our ads on social media, Facebook, and using some of the new ways that Charter has now. And it's a very inexpensive way to get the word out there. So if you ever plan on doing something like this, it's very, very cost effective versus regular TV. And our results. So prescription opioids continue trending down in our region. And those dispense, and this is MAPS data, again, the Michigan Automated Prescription System. Opioids dispensed in our region, I listed Benzie, Grand Traverse, Kalkaska, Manistee, and Leland as the 5 counties, even though not all of them participate in the funding of this campaign. But we're down across those 5, almost 30% over the last 3 periods from 2017 through 2020. So, I mean, that's still, it's going in the right direction. We have to stop it at the source and keep driving down the amount of prescriptions that are dispensed in our region. If we don't do that, we're never going to get on top of this battle. Overdose fatalities were trending extremely well, going right in the right direction if you look back to 2017. And again, this is not just the result of this initiative. There's been things done at the state level to help control the prescriptions that has been excellent, because they now restrict the amount of prescription opioids that are filled. You can only get so many if you've had a surgery or whatever. So that's also helped. But you can see Grand Traverse, 2017, 18 fatalities from opioid overdoses, dropped to 5, then to 4 in 2019, went back up to 11 in 2020. And that was, really 2 reasons. One was the COVID-19. The people that are in recovery weren't able to maintain the same level of meetings such that they had prior to that epidemic. The other cause that's related to that is the amount of fentanyl that's been infiltrated into our society lately. And I don't know, I think the fentanyl cases ought to be reclassified as poisonings of some sort, because there's people that aren't even drug abusers that might try smoking a joint or something with with fentanyl in it. They don't make it. They die from it. So we got a lot of work to do to turn this thing around. Our next steps on this initiative, we got to get the funding for phase 4. That's in the NMRE's hands right now. Our person in charge of the coalition, our coordinator, Sharon Breland, does an excellent job at putting in the applications for that. So we got to continue to test our knowledge and use surveys and mini quizzes to help understand if we're getting our message out properly and to help us refine our messaging. Continue to reach students and parents. And it's been tough in the schools because they went through the whole COVID thing after we launched. And then, you know, just it's been very tough to get into schools, but we're not going to drop the ball there. Keep working on it. Our long-term plans include addressing the root causes of addiction in general to any substance, not just opioids, and to also focus some of the messaging on anti-stigma campaigning. So finally, the quiz. $25 gift certificate to downtown Traverse City establishments. First question. In 2017, approximately how many opioid prescriptions were written per person in the state of Michigan? He had his hand up. One per person. Hey! There's the answer. One per person. 9.5 million prescriptions, all 9.9 million people in the state. Second question. Tell me at least 2 of the dangers or key risks from prescription opioids. Dependency and overdose. And how long does it take to become a dependent? 5 days. 5 days. I think that's good enough. Here's you become dependent on prescription opioids in 5 days. 80% of those who use heroin first use prescription opioids, and 1 in 10 opioid users.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thanks for listening. And the last question. Name at least 2 of the alternatives to prescription opioids for managing pain. Len.
Meditation and exercise.
Hey, she got 2. Such as acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and the National Safety Council has published a paper that shows that the combination of those 2 pain relievers is more impactful than prescription opioids. Physical therapy or exercise, meditation or spiritual, and then counseling. So, congratulations, Lynn. That was my last slide. Maybe one more to say thank you. With a picture of my son. He'd be sitting on the beach probably, or enjoying the first day of summer, just like all of us have today. So appreciate it. I don't know if there's questions now or if we do that later. We can do it either way. Okay. Anybody? Question back here.
Yes, you know, when we're talking about the root cause, I recently resigned from my job in acute care psychiatric at Munson because I've seen a lot of 18, 19-year-olds coming in with depression, anxiety, panic attacks and such, but immediately being prescribed meds and not being accompanied by counseling or, you know, a holistic approach.
Yep.
And it's sad to say a lot of them, if that isn't effective for them or they have adverse side effects, they're going to go to the next thing. So in some ways, we're setting some of these people up. I do a lot of counseling, and I've worked with several young men who were diagnosed as ADHD when they were around 8 years old or whatever. And eventually they became addicted to alcohol. And they felt like it stunted their emotional development.
Yep.
And I PAs, physician assistants, are prescribing antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds right off the bat, 5 minutes. And no, like, well, let's try this first, And in some cases, people need those.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a godsend. But in other cases, they're actually having adverse side effects. And I just want to share with everybody, there's a great book called Lost Connections, and another one called Medication Madness by Dr. Peter Briggins, a Harvard psychiatrist, and they'll give 25 case studies. So it's important that parents are aware, because I know with my son, who's a recovering addict, when I took him, in 7th grade, he was experiencing a lot of bullying. It's a long story, but anyway, immediately you put on Prozac. Well, I do whatever the doctor says, and he has serious adverse side effects. And, but anyway, I think we've got to promote the awareness of that as well.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I don't have a good answer for, how some of this stuff happens, in the medical community, but thanks for sharing. We'll be heightened awareness around it. Pass the word along. Hopefully, we're beyond the point of this pandemic where a lot of the young people that need this anxiety stuff, that was, a lot of it was probably related to that.
Yeah, a lot of them were spiraling because the isolation and lack of structure.
Yeah.
And loneliness.
Question back there, was it? Somebody had a hand up?
Kind of.
Okay.
I just gotta tell them about some things that I went through recently. Being a person in recovery myself, I understand the dangers of pills. Sometimes people have procedures and they don't go as planned, and it takes 7 months after something that should have been gone over a month, and they're still trying to figure things out. I'm working very closely with my doctor, and that's the difference, having a good doctor. I had a doctor in Grand Rapids once, and I was telling him I was bipolar. I want to get on something. I need on something. He said, no, not putting you on anything. It's going to take a couple of years to figure out if you're bipolar. You've been drinking for 20 years, And I had a really good doctor, and I'm very thankful for that. In the case now, I still have a good doctor. Like I said, we talk and we work together, and tolerance is something that does build up. Sometimes I need to up it, and again, working with my doctor, and then called it in Walgreens, and they refused to fill it. Which I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to call Jeff or Bill, who I know can get some stuff on the street, but it really sent a light bulb up, like, oh my God, the normal person probably would like, oh, I know somebody who can get me some.
Yeah.
And that's where you run into the problem. I mean, there's no machines get found all over. You mentioned, people are putting in weed even, I think that is actually creating a huge problem. And again, not every doctor is good, but I think the majority of them are. I mean, it just did raise like a huge flag for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, here's where someone would go get something. I just heard the story in Texas when this woman overdosed off of what she thought was Vicodin, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the fentanyl testing strips, those are cool, but you have to take them first. You can't just test your drug a little bit. You have to take it and then wait an hour. So if you're not dead, you might want to see if there's some fentanyl in it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that's a good idea. So,
Yeah, that is great input, I heard at the Grand Traverse Coalition meeting last month or earlier this month that there are no procedures you get for anesthesia that are non-opioid, which is great, especially for people that are dependent on opioids, because usually that's what triggers it. It did in our son, it triggered another bout of opioid addiction after he had got clean. So that link has been provided, and Lauren has it if anybody needs it. But the other thing I was going to mention, our 4th phase of this campaign is going to be on medication safety. And we got to get the word out better, because people are taking pills where they really don't know where they came from. So we're going to try and have some messaging around that because of this whole fentanyl deal. And you shouldn't be putting any medicines in your mouth that aren't prescribed by a doctor, but people still do. And we got to try and get the word out better.
Thank you so much, Ken. All right, our next speakers today will be Lauren Reed, who is the coordinator of the Grand Traverse County Drug-Free Coalition, and Linda Solom, who is the prevention specialist with Up North Prevention. And they're going to be sharing about the prevention work they are doing with the STAND students. And that stands for Students Together Against Negative Decisions in Grand Traverse County, and other youth prevention work that they're doing.
Hi, like Melissa mentioned, I'm Lauren Reed and I'm the coordinator of the Grand Traverse County Drug-Free Coalition.
And I'm Linda Solom, Substance Use Disorder Prevention Specialist with Up North Prevention and Initiative Catholic Human Services.
So first, I'm going to give us a little history about the coalition and the work that we're doing, and then we're going to focus more on the work that we're doing with the youth. So the mission of our coalition is to create a community-wide culture of awareness and action in the prevention, treatment, and recovery of substance use disorders, with a vision of a substance use disorder-free Grand Traverse County. A little history about our coalition. So this started back in early 2015 when Judge Bob Cooney called community leaders together to address the opioid epidemic. So as our coalition has matured, we don't only focus on opioids anymore. We focus on all substances, including alcohol, marijuana, vaping, and any other types of drugs and alcohol. So today our coalition is made up from experts from various sectors of our community. And like Ken had mentioned with their coalition, we are also partially funded through PA2 or liquor tax funding through the Northern Michigan Regional Entity.
And so a little bit about us at Up North Prevention. As I mentioned, we're an initiative developed under the umbrella of Catholic Human Services. And the purpose is to develop a unified approach over a large geographic service area to advance substance use disorder prevention efforts in the northern lower Michigan. We do cover 21 counties, and in 14 of those counties, we have prevention specialists. The initiative facilitates a strengthened framework of delivery, efficient resource allocation, and the development of a regional prevention approach. We educate the community using evidence-based curriculum, and that's for schools, small groups, or events. We use BOTVINs. For some of you, you may be familiar with that. And that has a proven record. It has proven to cut drug use by up to 75%. And it's also been proven to cut alcohol use up to 60%. And also violence, 50%. And the violence is verbal, physical aggression, fighting, and delinquency. And last but not least, they've been proven to cut tobacco use by up to 87%. And that's particularly informative in light of all the vaping, which is really taking over in the youth and high schools and even in the middle schools. They use state-of-the-art prevention education activities and teaching strategies. So we also teach on substance use disorders to prevent drug and alcohol misuse with at-risk populations. And we use an evidence-based curriculum called Prime for Life, and they're committed to reducing problems related to high-risk behaviors and consequences, and making better alcohol and drug choices. So a main emphasis and part of our purpose is to emphasize safety, health, and wellness for children and youth. Youth who start drinking before the age 15 are 7 times more likely to develop alcohol use disorder as adults than those who wait until after age 18. And the risky substance use and addiction is a leading cause of preventable death in the United States. And in most cases, it begins in the teen years. More than 90,000 Americans died of an overdose in 2020. Addiction is more likely to start in the teen years. That's why delayed first time use is so important. And the operative word there is delayed first time use. So that's why what we're doing with our youth is so vital and important. Early initiation of drinking is associated with development of an alcohol use disorder later in life. And early onset of regular marijuana use among adolescents is linked to a decline in IQ and is associated with educational dropout. And that is also really highly used in vaping. and that's increasing in the trending. So vaping is also really kind of something to take note of.
So a part of our coalition, we have the Students Together Against Negative Decisions, or STAND clubs. So these are student-led prevention clubs in the county's high schools. So we currently have active clubs at West Senior High, Central High School, and Kingsley High School. So with these, the students plan and implement activities and events throughout the school year at the school and in their local community, which focus on substance misuse prevention. So the students identify the needs in their particular school, and they are the ones that decide really what we're doing. And then we are just there to facilitate, and Linda provides that education that she had talked about previously. So I have some pictures here of events that we had done to kind of give you an idea of some of the activities that the students have come up with. So at the top left there, so our Kingsley group did a March Madness tournament the past 2 years now. So this year it was 2 weeks of trivia in their homerooms, and it was all related to substance education and awareness. And then the final assembly, the two homerooms that had the highest score going into that, they got to compete in some different gym games. And then we had Harry Workema, who is a retired school officer, and he came in and did education on drugs and alcohol for the students. And then in the middle on the left there, so prior to COVID, we did a youth summit each year at the beginning of the school year. So that really kicked off the events. And there we would bring STAND leaders from each of the schools together. And so they would do some networking and different games and education. And then we do a big planning session where they get ideas for different events they'll do at their schools. And then I won't play the videos, but the top right there is at Central High School. The teachers all came together and they did a mental health awareness video that all the students saw. And at the bottom left, those two students at West High School, we partnered with the Michigan State Police and a few other local organizations, and we did a drug awareness basketball game. So with that, we did a t-shirt that all of the students got that had different community resources related to substance use disorder. So they all left there, and then they had that information of where they can go if they or someone they know is struggling. And then down there's another picture from a summit. And then next to that at the library, the Kingsley students during finals week, they wanted to promote mental health and positive messaging. So they made signs that put over the school. And then the bottom there, so the Central High School students, they did an alcohol awareness video, and this was shown to the students the week before prom. And then another project that we are just starting and we're really excited about is called Photo Voice. So this is a visual research methodology that allows participants to use photography to document, reflect upon different issues of concerns in their community. So our project focuses on youth perspective on substance use. So the class meets multiple weeks and we have different professionals come in with us. So I am there. Linda's there to do the education that she had talked about. Nancy came and joined us. And then we had a local photographer who did the education piece of that. So the classes entailed students come in, talk about their photos. They're given a prompt each week. We talk about it together. We do some education. They get some photography education. And then we send them off with a new prompt. So we are working to get that into more schools in the coming school year. So Linda and I have met with the wellness committee at TCAP. So we're hoping to get that started there in the fall. And then this is a finished project. So that's from a northern county, but I just wanted to share what that can look like. So they focused on mental health, but that was a photo that one of the students took, and then they write captions for their photos. So I'm not sure if people can read. I'll just read it really quick. So I think a common stigma surrounding youth mental health is that if you don't have a mental illness or deal with issues like depression and anxiety, you must be a happy and sound person. This stigma makes a lot of youth feel invalidated when it comes to addressing their own mental states. If they aren't mentally ill or diagnosed with mental health problems, they must be mentally healthy. In reality, mental health is a spectrum. We all have good moments and bad moments. You shouldn't be brought up to think that your mental health can only be in a good or a bad state. Many times we deal with both emotions simultaneously. So the goal with this project is they go through the weekly prompts and then at the end, they pick a few of their favorite photos that they want to display. So we do a local event in their community. And then once we have multiple schools that have done this, we'll come together and do a big event somewhere downtown Traverse City that we're hoping will be on display for at least a month. And then there's our contact information, and I think we can take some questions now. Any questions?
I'd love to see some of your students come to one of our fan forums to speak as a speaker, because I think we get questions quite often about people who have kids at home, who their brothers or sisters or parents or aunts and uncles have substance use disorder, and they say, well, what things can we do to support our kids, and what is the school doing? So I think to hear you talk about what they're doing in their own school, what they can have from each different school, I think that would be great. I think that we get a lot of questions about youth, and I think that's really beneficial. By the way, and I did search around and found out that there aren't as many people who know about that program as I thought. I called a couple of schools and I said, well, what do you have? Do you have a teacher or something that leads a youth program, in my substance use disorder? They go, I don't know. So apparently it's something that needs to be a little more widespread, and maybe we can help people a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, like kind of mentioned, it can be difficult getting into the school, so we do what we can. Oh, yeah.
From being like in high school right now, you go into the bathroom and everybody's like, oh, like they're dumb, they do it right there in front of you. And they're like, oh, you want to hit this bait? So it's like then someone tries it and they're like, oh, I like this. Like here's money, like go get me one. And it's so bad. So I like that you guys are doing this and like bringing it into the school and like telling people like that is not good, because that's just how kids are. And then next thing you know, they're getting kicked out of school. And from the school I go to in Lake City, I don't think the teachers are like smart about it. Like when they see a group of people going to the bathroom, they don't try to stop it or like go in there with them. Like they just kind of like let it happen. It's not okay.
Great, thanks for sharing.
That's really good points. And yeah, it'd be really great to have an educational type forum, maybe for the parents to understand what's happening. They might have an idea, but not really know. Same with the teachers, so that they can know better how to handle that. So thank you for your very bright opinion there.
So, Dr. Van Wagner's group of kids, there's some kind of advisory group that we talked about that some programs and maybe
Yeah, so that's just starting up. So it's called the Wellness Committee, and Ty Schmidt is heading that up. So we have met with him. And then there's a board, so he's going to present our photo voice information back to them, and he loves the project, so we're hoping that it goes through. But
opportunities for education to students.
so yeah, so a group of us back there, and Matt and Maddie too, we the Predator and Prey documentary, which we watched the first week here. So we were going into, well, virtually West Middle School, and then we would meet with a different class each week. They would watch it, and then we would have at least 2 people, one with lived experience and somebody that works in the field, come, and they would just have an open conversation with the students. So that was really great. And we were supposed to get in there again this year, but unfortunately with COVID and different things, it didn't work out. So if anybody has ins at the school or ideas, we are always open.
Yeah, and that probably is something we need to follow up on too, just because, and I did mention it to Dr. Van Wagner, that if he has any high-risk students, we can do a couple of weeks, we can do several hour classes with them. And I don't think the schools are taking advantage of that at this point, and that is something we offer, and that can be virtual or in person. So hopefully we can kind of follow up with that and make the right connections to maybe introduce more education and responses to what the students' needs are through education, because we have the tools. Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren and Linda. Okay, and our third speaker this evening is going to be Matthew Zarelli. He is the Juvenile Justice Diversion Therapist specializing in substance use disorder and Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, and he will be speaking about his program that works with at-risk adolescents. Thank you so much, Matt.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. First off, to the library for hosting these events. I mean, it's so important to have this outlet, and to the folks that have already presented tonight and all of you here. It's always great to see these. I keep seeing the same familiar faces in these places, and it really makes me happy to see that. Yes, my name is Matt Zarelli. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor. I am the therapist for the Juvenile Justice Diversion Program at Community Mental Health. And as some of you know, and thanks to many of you people in this room, whether you know it or not, I'm a person in recovery for the past 17 years. Thank you. I'm really passionate. Some of you may know me from the porch. I worked at ATS for years. It's great. We've got some of our old colleagues here, Jackie Thomas and Maddie. Everybody knows Maddie. We used to work together at the porch at ATS, and I'm really passionate about justice diversion in general. I always joke that 17 years ago, I had a real heart-to-heart with the state of Michigan, and I decided it was time for me to stop drinking. It was their idea originally, and then I kind of came around to it. It can be very persuasive. But it's, I kind of carry that with me, because without the court system and without that kind of pressure in my life, we all come to it in different ways. And without that pressure, I wouldn't be here, I don't think. Certainly not having this conversation. So it's a really important component to me, this justice diversion piece, which started at the Path at ATS, which was an adult justice diversion program. Yeah, we started having conversations at the porch. Every year we would do this Rethinking Addiction conference at ATS, and the thing would keep coming up. We would always have these community discussions, and the thing that would keep coming up is, we have to do more for adolescents. We have to do more for adolescents, and everybody would just kind of shrug and move on. And as the conversation before me that was so eloquent about stating, it's such a high risk group. At a resting state, adolescents are at such a higher risk. I think it was 7 times more likely if they use substances to develop a lifelong addiction. And that's where we talk all the time about trying to find these off ramps, right? When we start to see all these behaviors manifest early. So that's what our program is about. The Juvenile Justice Diversion is basically a partnership with Community Mental Health and the Probation Department and the truancy office in town, and also community. We get referrals from FAN and from others. We're open to all of those as well. But it's really these kiddos that are starting to demonstrate behaviors that are, truancy, some of these surface level behaviors that we know that there's some kind of underlying mental health concerns, often co-occurring, often depression, often anxiety, often substance use. It's been mentioned in a couple of the conversations earlier, there's a crisis of connection happening over the last few years with the pandemic. We're just now starting to see some of the research come out about how it's just been catastrophic for a lot of these adolescents with the lack of connection. So the Juvenile Justice Diversion Program is funded by my position is funded by a liquor tax grant, which the irony isn't lost on me that all the money that I put in my 20s, I'm now taking out as dividends. So it's kind of a, I like to recycle. Primarily the interventions that we try to get into, specifically, we're working on family support and family stabilization. So my goal really is to work with the whole family. I have a lot of flexibility because I am funded by a liquor tax position or by a liquor tax grant to meet kids in the community, to meet families, to do home-based work, and to do some of that family stabilization. Really starting to kind of identify the family support or oftentimes lack thereof that are leading to a lot of these challenges for these kiddos. We're also in the schools, we're trying to kind of cast this net as wide as we can. We have a curriculum, my partner, Amy Bunbury, and I, who's the other therapist in the Juvenile Justice Diversion Program, have come up with a curriculum. We call it the Healthy Habits Group. We were in Traverse City High and Creekside, formerly New Campus, once a week all year, meeting with kiddos that were recommended as high risk, just to do basic general kind of multiple pathways, harm reduction focus, kind of the public health focus on substance use. We talk a lot about moods and emotions. We talk a lot about managing impulses. We talk a lot about what to look out for in terms of the actual biopsychosocial cycle of addiction, right? Some just real basic education stuff. I don't know who the young gal, what was your name? Marina, when you said vapes, I wanted to give you an amen, because that's the thing that, so we're seeing so many kids on board into addiction with vapes, dab pens. We're seeing a lot, I mean, video games right now have become, with the way everything's kind of converged in the last 2 years with COVID, we see a lot of, gaming abuse. It's really wild. And it's really something that thank you for speaking up. Thank you for speaking up. It's great. It's really great. So really the goal, what we're trying to do when we cast that net into schools, is to kind of just be seen in the schools, kind of identify our program as a program that you can reach out to, a program that has education, that has support. We work with the courts. They've been the probation department has been very good about hearing us out and hearing the support and the advocacy that we have for a lot of these kids. There are some big things coming. I think we're really moving in the right direction as far as the criminal justice. We've mentioned it for many years. The criminal justice system in this community has come a long way. We got a long way to go, but we've come a long way. Also, I do want to point out that we have what's called the FAST program. Has anybody heard of the FAST program before? A couple. We have this gal by the name of Lauren Franklin. We call her Frankie. She is on call for any adolescent crises that happen in the community, mental health crises, I guess is the plural of that. And she's great. She's really expanded that program. That is a 5-county program. You can reach out. Please grab some of that information off the table on your way out. It's been really helpful as not only a way to handle crisis, but to provide long-term care and service to kiddos that are having a rough time. So really our goals, my goal and my passion is substance use and trying to find off-ramps in the substance use world. I do the bulk of the work that I do is substance use work. I am starting to get more into some of the mood and emotion work in terms of therapy, but I'm, those of you that know me know that I'm kind of I can't go anywhere without talking about breaking stigma. I mean, it's a big thing for me. I often think about what these kids see when they walk around this town and see the cycle pubs and the paddle and pints and the, all these different things, and how normalized it's all become. And in the last few years, how normalized it is to see a dispensary on every corner. It's a different world. And adolescent brains really just aren't quite ready for it. I don't think it's really become something. So, so that said, I didn't do I didn't bring any money to give away. I will offer the opportunity to talk Jeff out of his money though. That's what he can be susceptible to peer pressure. I know that on good authority. But that's a little outline of the program. I am specifically Grand Traverse focused as far as the juvenile justice diversion work. There is another of me in Wexford, and we're trying to get some in some of these other counties that you've seen. But it's a big need, and we are here to take those calls. And if we can't place them in our services, we will refer. Please let us know. Pick up my card. We will get them in the system somehow and try to find them support. It's so important. That's where the off ramp is in those. We talk all the time. Where's the off ramp? And it's in those adolescent years. And I'm, so many times I tell kids, I want to save you the 10 years that I spent, battling this thing from 15 to 27 or whatever it was. So that's the Juvenile Justice Diversion Program. I hope that you guys grab some information. Please let me know if you have any questions. Now's the time for questions. our access department will connect them. So you can call the access number. You can call me directly, or you can call our access number, and they'll sort them right through to us. And they've gotten pretty good at it. This is a relatively new program too. It's been going for about I'd say full tilt for about 6 months, but we've been funded for about a year and really trying to get it up and running. We're trying to hire another of me in Grand Traverse as well. We got our hands full. What we're looking at right now, my program specifically is 12, and I can see kids up to 20 if they're high risk, meaning risk is, we can generally, I mean, if kids get to us, there's risk. I mean, that could be couch surfing, that could be just about anything. It could be abuse in the home, it could be housing instability, as I said, just about anything can qualify as risk. But if you need a referral, let us know and we'll get them plugged in. Yes, sir.
Question. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
No, my question is, kids that are now vaping, like back when I graduated like 5 years ago, the smokers were like the bad.
Yeah. No, really.
In my school, there were 30 kids.
Yeah.
Cigarettes and weed and alcohol at all, and they were labeled.
Yeah.
So my question is, now today, are these kids that are vaping in the bathroom? Back in my day, they were smoking. They get caught, they get kicked out of school. They were bad. Now, are they getting kicked out of school, or are they going, hey, wait, this is that risk kid? Let's see what's going on at home.
Yeah.
You know, like, are they trying to get into that trauma, or do they not have time?
It's really tricky. I mean, I had a kid it was a really insightful thing. One of the kiddos at our group, I don't remember what school it was at, but they said the thing about the difference between smoking and vaping is you can conceal a vape. You can do it anywhere. Like it's so, like you had mentioned, it's in the bathroom. It's easy to pass. It's easy to hit. And there's this kind of idea that it's less harmful than smoking, which is true, but it's been kind of sold as an alternative to smoking, which I remember when I was a kid. I mean, I'm 45 now, and I remember when I used to smoke, and there was billboards in town that try smokeless tobacco. It's a safe alternative, right? And then I guess my whole thing is, it's just anytime a tobacco company is trying to sell you something as a safe option, I have a lot of questions about it. But you're right. A lot of it is underlying, a lot of it is peer pressure. A lot of kids that are, the support isn't there, or the oversight isn't there, or just the healthy examples aren't there. I mean, it's all those things, right? I mean, there's so many different reasons that it takes. That's why this work is so complicated. You really have to, it's case by case with the kids, but the vaping is wild. If it were up to me, like every school would be like a gas station. You'd have one key, one person in the bathroom at the time. It's like, I just have I gotta say, it's, I make jokes, but I have so much empathy for the school staff and what they've got to be mindful of these days and how different it is, and what the things that they really have to be aware of. I mean, it's tough, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's been a tough one. The vapes is a tough one.
I just fear that people, you're gonna get kicked out for vaping, and then they go down that path. Well, I'm already smoking, I'm a bad kid.
Yeah.
Kicked out of school, I'm gonna go to jail. You start believing in that, and that's what you become. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know if the stigma is the same as smoking, but yes, I definitely see that kind of pattern where it starts. And a lot of the stuff we do with healthy habits is we try to back all compulsive behavior, all addiction into the kind of dopamine cycle in the brain, right? Which is, it kind of takes a lot of the stigma out of it and kind of explains some of that habit behavior. But yeah, vapes have just been off the charts. Yes.
Do you get any clients directed towards you, like for probationary measures, legal implications, or is that not?
Well, the goal with the Juvenile Justice Diversion Program is we get kids that have been referred to the prosecutor for some charge, and it's kind of like a limbo state that they're in while they complete. We give them, what I say all the time is we try to be cheerleaders and offer opportunities for them to prove to probation that they don't need to be on full probation, right? So that's the goal. There is a separate program that I won't talk about today that is after they get charged. That's a little bit more, that's also a diversion program, but it's more intensive. But the JJD program is, the whole goal is to keep the criminal record clear, right? So they've identified truancy problems. There's been assault. There's been kiddos caught with a pipe at school or whatever the case, or smoking on the bus, or, you know, all the stuff that cool kids do, you know, whatever. You know, all those kind of, people always say, what kids do you work with? I'm like, you know, the cool kids. Like, that's, you know, the kids that are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing in high school. So, yeah. So, but the goal is ultimately for there to be no criminal record. Yeah.
I just like to commend you on what you're doing, especially that aspect of it, because in my opinion, it goes much further than just the criminal record. Once, especially juveniles, once you normalize it inside of a courtroom,
That's it.
they are on a fast track. to
That's
much
it.
more trouble. So,
Yep.
thank you.
It is a direct pathway. I mean, there are studies out there that literally the jail systems will count the number of truant kids, and that's how they plan for the future of their how many jails they need. It is, and it's yeah, and thank you, and that's, you know, spread the word. We're trying to do this in every county. We are Northern Lakes is in 5 counties, and we're trying to spread this out as much as we can. So, yeah. Yeah, thanks, y'all. You guys know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you once again, everyone, for coming this evening. And thank you to our presenters, Ken, Lauren, Linda, and Matt. And we hope to see you all again in July, on Tuesday, July 19th. And our next subject will be workforce development and then the drug and sobriety court. So we hope to see you then. Thank you.